Hi everyone, let's talk about Squaring Circleville, which I've just finished a solo playthrough for. You can see that if you would like to see the game in action. Hopefully that'll give you the best idea of whether or not you'd be into it. This is just me talking about it, if you are interested in that, from a kind of solo-y perspective. So yeah, I love the concept of Squaring Circleville. I don't know if it is just the kind of unique situation and something that I haven't heard about before, or the kind of how it's marrying into its mechanisms, or most likely a combination of the two of those things. It's like, say, something like Lisboa. Not that the theme itself, reconstruction or whatever, is like that's what grabbed you, but say with Lisboa, where it's like, well, Lisboa went through this earthquake and these fires and these floods and all this, and so your attention is suddenly grabbed. And like, what? That happened? So too, the story of Circleville and it's sad squaring. Like, I know that's like the roles that we take on in this game, but please, Circleville, make it a circle again. It's probably too much trouble these days, but hey, that's a cool idea for a town. So the mechanisms themselves, I really like the constraints that are placed on you from kind of the action selection of the rondel. Although you do have a lot of freedom with what you can do from that. You can usually get to a lot of the actions. You've got a lot of options from there. The big restriction is like you want to level yourself up as well. You want to try and make your actions stronger and stronger. That's nice because it's pulling you in a direction of, well, I want to do the things that I'm strongest at, but it's not always the optimal thing to do. You might not be able to do that very effectively, kind of from the big restriction of just moving your supervisor. I don't know where mine is on the board now. Just moving your supervisor one space at a time, which when it's all like this and finished, all of these are one great big section when they're completed, which makes moving around to the few areas that are left, that works really well. It's, easing that movement towards the end of the game where there's just a few spaces you need to race towards. But when it's all open and it's hard to move between these areas, you have to kind of plan out, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to complete these things? Do I want to have a big stake in these things? It's all loads of mini area control things, which I know, like in multiplayer at least, I have complained about before. Obviously, in solo, I'm all for it. And yeah, it doesn't tend to work as well at two players as well. I know that I get questions sometimes about, rightfully so, about complaining about area control when it's a popular mechanism. But yeah, it doesn't tend to work as well at two, because it's you or me, isn't it? But yeah, in the solo perspective, especially when you can add multiple solo bots in there, it becomes a lot more interesting, especially when you've got that bot element of the fact that you can't sit there for well, I don't want to sit there for ages planning out exactly what they're going to do and then work out what I'm going to do, but you could, especially as it gets to the last turn and you kind of can start to see there are not that many, the decision space starts to close in and you can see, well, what's the most effective thing for my last turn? I can see that it's the end of the game now, so what do I do with these things? They're going to do this, they're going to do this, so I need to make sure I'm as many majorities as I can get, or I need to get that last achievement tile or something like that. Yeah, so you want to try and get the most points from every area that's completed, but you completing it can be important as well. Having the most in there does give you that cube when it's finished. It gives you an advantage on the progress track, which is a big scoring opportunity at the end of the game for everyone as well. You don't want to be left completely in the dust in all of these areas, unless but that's another kind of dynamic thing of the game, that potentially you could be making so many points off of these things that you are not necessarily that concerned about the few points that you're missing out on from being second or maybe even third on a certain track, because you've made sure that you've built loads of this kind of color of building. You've been watching for when the things are coming down the queue, but at the same time you taking an achievement tile that's, oh, I want to build a load of brown buildings. Well, kind of for sure you can bet that anytime a brown building comes up in there, that gets a little more attractive for somebody else to build that instead. But at the same time, you don't want to divert from your plans completely to try and stop someone else doing something, or just to, you're really, really powerful. You can do the deconstruct action at level 5. There's one cube that needs doing here. You can't get your supervisor anywhere else if you choose that. Is it worth doing that? Maybe are you going to get the majority now? You will get the completion bonus, but is it worth only doing a single cube on your turn to get that out? Sometimes. And that's kind of the fun decisions, the dynamic decisions. I'm saying dynamic all the time in the last few videos, I've noticed, so now I can't stop saying it. The solo, I mentioned it a little bit. It's really great. So I've only played the solo version because yeah, the area control isn't as much of a thing for us, and we just haven't had time to play everything multiplayer. But I am really drawn to the fact that there are bots anyway. There are very simple to use bots. That's always a plus in the solo game, that there's not even any kind of overhead to learn these extra things. You have their little player aid sheets here, which might look like there's a fair bit of text on there, but really, you've seen in the playthrough, hopefully, their turns can just whiz by. You start to they work in a pattern, and you can start to see very quickly, like, well, what does Catherine do? Move on there. Oh, she's going to take these 2 or maybe 4 actions in this bit. Their kind of decision tree, their flowchart is very easy to go through, and they have all distinct personalities as well. So Catherine's going to do a lot of turns where she's not going to do very much, some turns where she's going to do loads, and then back to not very much again. Have this kind of flow. Carsten, depending on what the colours are available, might get much more powerful actions, or just take 3 little ones every time. And you maybe have some influence over that by what tiles you're leaving him, because you're going first, no matter who you're playing against. And I really like that you can combine this with up to 3 of the 4 personalities. You're playing as some one-player colour, of course, but you could combine this together, as I did. That it works very, very well. I really, really enjoyed my games just practicing against one of the bots. But yeah, I really like that you can combine them, and that it does add to that challenge in a different, definitely, to playing with players who have their own agendas and stuff. You have a bit of information. You can see what they might do, which area they're going to look at. So then you can kind of narrow it down. Oh, they might complete this. So do I want to do that first, or do I want to get a few more cubes in there? So maybe I'll have the majority when they do complete that, as I can see. Whereas with other players, you don't know if they're actually going to end up doing that. But yeah, that it does make the game a lot more interesting, that things can be completed kind of, in just a 2-player game, things can be completed without your involvement. But as soon as you've got the 2 bots in there, you've got to watch out for the 2 of them just kind of accidentally working together and completing these things without you. So they're both racing ahead on the track while you aren't getting anything out of it. You probably want to try and have a taste of that. But yeah, it works together really well, and it's not much more like their turns are just as snappy having more bots on there. So I can imagine, I haven't tried one with a 4-player game with 3 of the bots on there, but yeah, it would be harder working out what to do when and being able to predict them. When you're just playing against one bot, it's a lot easier to see, okay, well, they're going to do that, so maybe I want to do this. As you add more players, as in if you were playing with 4 real players, there's a lot more. You can't just pin your hopes on you being the next person to complete something, so you can get this tile, or in a couple of things time, this is in the queue. So you can kind of think maybe for that, but you can't be very concrete about it, because 3 other people are going to get a turn before you, and those things are probably going to change. But yeah, in short, solo, lots of personalities, works beautifully well, and yeah, I've really, really enjoyed it. But the playthrough is there. This is just talking about things, isn't it? The playthrough is there for you to see whether or not you would be interested in giving it a go for yourself. But yeah, I would recommend, if you get the chance to, give it a go. It's something very unique, both theme-wise, and I think it is doing something different and interesting with its combination of mechanism, just in the rondel and the different levels of area control, like the way that you want to control just the individual bits before they're completed, and then the thing as a whole once it is completed. That's secondary, like the actions will eventually become closed off. There won't be any roads to construct or buildings to raise anymore. So the secondary actions there that don't seem like you're getting a lot done in a turn suddenly become vital, and might be the difference between you getting tons of points in these majorities at the end or nothing. Or maybe you don't care because you've got a thing that's a point for every action disc. You don't want to take any bonus actions because you want this to be full of discs. I'm starting again, and I thought I was finishing the video. Anyway, yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye, everyone.